You are now listening to the Going North podcast, where you'll receive tips and techniques to advance yourself. I'm your host, Dom Brightman, and every week we're going to be hearing from an author who's going to share their expertise to help you charge forward in life. On a quick side note, be sure to check out Going North the book. It's available in ebook, audio, as well as paperback form for those who love to read a traditional book. Now let's get on with the show.
And today on the Going North podcast, we have, you guessed it, another author, but not just any author. This was the first for the Going North podcast because we have a spoken word artist. And this spoken word artist has been writing since the age of 12. She's written poetry, short stories, stage plays, and many more. She believes that writing is the best form of healing and that you can normally say what you can't say in person or to a person. She finds it as a way of freedom and exploration. And you got to be wondering who this wonderful person is, the one who's the author of the 3 magical books. I'll talk about the one, the only, Crystal Santoria. How are you today?
I am fine. I'm fine.
Oh, yeah, fine indeed. Had me cracking up before I even pressed that button. Oh, my gosh. So, just give a short little introduction. Mind filling in the gaps where I may have missed some things?
Yeah, you was right. I have been writing since I was 12, but I actually didn't really want to write novels. My teacher saw it in me, but I didn't want to write novels. I want to be an open heart surgeon, and that is all I want to do until life hit me and student loans hit me, because there are so many things going on, like death in the families every year. I mean, back to back to back. And a lot of people, they use their emotions. They turn it into anger, and they start going off or spewing that anger towards family members and friends. And I found a way to cope with death, especially death of a parent, death of a grandparent. And I decided I was going to write what I couldn't say. So with my first book, I actually, every emotion I felt at the funeral, before the funeral, that I didn't get a chance to say, you know, in the moment when it was happening, when the death was going on, or family members that was actually very rude. So, you know, things you really just want to say, like, look, girl, and you just want to go out, but you can't say it, like nothing happens. So in my book, I was like, you're going in the book. Like that little kid in the meme, and he's just writing away. I wrote everything. So that's one thing about being an author. You can just write away every emotion you ever felt and use them as a character in your book, and, hey, make money off of that.
There you go, going all in.
All in.
And that's really powerful right there.
It really is.
So with writing, releasing the emotions, and dealing with death, any other trials that you have to overcome to get to where you currently are?
Oh, yes. I say in 2015, my pops died, and that was the hardest part because I didn't even write my book then, and I was just trying to figure out how to finish the book. So I actually wrote his death in the book, and that helped me to heal from his death and not to have his death sting, because it was a sudden death. It wasn't a prolonged death where you knew they were dying. It was an unexpected death, and I didn't know how to heal. So I wrote his death in the actual book and gave him his proper due in the book. And that is how I healed. And then the next year, I found out my grandmother had cancer.
Oh, man.
And it was prolonged. She had it for years, the doctor said. she just didn't want to burden her family with letting them know that she had bone cancer. And I started putting that in my second book, Blood Runs Deep. So every time there was a death in my stories, I've used what I wanted to say. I expressed that in each character, like eulogies, whatever, things that I wanted to say of something in the present day teed me off. And I didn't have a comeback then. I came back in my book. So it was a lot that really happened that pushed me into writing. And a lot of people, they're like, how do I get my emotions out? I'm still dealing with this hurt and this pain. Use that. If you don't even want to do a nonfiction novel or nonfiction book, self-help, tell-all book, autobiography, use a fiction novel. Switch the names up. Make it legal. Go to a lawyer and see how you can make it legal to tell your story. And write what you would have done if the situation was different. And that's what I did. And I expressed everything in the book, and I laid it out till people actually liked the emotions because it was emotions they could identify with. But to where I'm in now, I am just blessed to be able to have 3 books and be open to speaking engagements on how I turned my pain into writing. It's just a blessing, man. It's a real blessing.
Blessing indeed, especially with losing your loved ones, a parent like your father, and not even having a prolonged death. Because I know we personally lost my father last year, but it was dementia, and he's had it for years. We knew it was coming, but with your father, it was all of a sudden no one saw it coming. So it's really great that you found a way to transform that pain into the power of writing.
Definitely. Like with Up for Air, I have 43 original poems in that book. And each poem, a relationship gone bad, whatever, the plight of how black men are being gunned down in America, and, all those emotions that I couldn't figure out how to deal with because it ponders in your mind every time you go to sleep. So I used every emotion I had, and that's how I got every poem. If I felt complacent, if I felt like I was stuck, I used that in poems, and I added all of that elements along with the fiction storyline to Up for Air, and that's why you have the poetry and the fiction line. It's 2 separate things, but the actual lead actress or lead character in the book is actually a spoken word artist, which opened the door to add all those poems because she went on tour as a spoken word artist. So I was really blessed to have had that mindset to make 2 of the things I love doing into 1 book. 2 for 1. Woohoo!
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Still have the aspirations to be an open heart surgeon?
Yes, I really did. I really loved surgery because my brother had it when he was 15. And from then I wanted to be an open heart surgeon. I was like, I can do this. I get to college, I'm sitting in biology class, and I'm going over this Krebs cycle in biology. I'm like, it wasn't registering. Nothing clicked on the test. And I would come to her office before class started, days that we didn't have class, and nothing came up. And I'm like, what am I doing? Because what I wanted to do and my purpose was not matching up. So the door just kept shutting until I lined myself up with my purpose in life and not what I wanted to do in life. So once I did that, years later, the books came. I didn't have to force the storylines. They just came like that.
Kind of amazing how life works sometimes, where you want to force something to happen, and then, of course, tragedy strikes, and then doors keep on shutting. Folks keep saying no, and then out of nowhere you get to the state of flow where basically you've reached waterfall status and all just comes out easily.
Oh, yes. And you just have to let it come. Even though the doors keep shutting, if you find an area in your life that where the door is open, where you're great at technology and building a computer software, or you're great at poetry, or you're great at rebuilding the engine, go full speed ahead and build off of that.
So for those who want to gain the confidence to not only write their stories, write their work, but more importantly to actually talk about their work, what advice would you give to them?
For those who literally want to write or talk about books or how you feel, I would say take a pause on your traditional way of looking at writing. Because a lot of people, we have stories within us, and you might not want the self-help or nonfiction lane. You might want to hide everything and go the fiction route like I did and parallel it to your life. Write with your emotions. Write everything that you couldn't say to your abusive husband, or write everything that you couldn't say to your parents when they got divorced. Put a divorce scene in your book and write everything that your parents went through and how they felt and when they told you how they felt. But also write how you felt with the kids in the kids scene and when they're going over and they're narrating how they feel. Write everything you feel so the audience can feel it the exact same way. Put your feelings and your emotions into your novels. That's the only way I can tell to write a successful novel, is to put your feelings in it. Put how you feel with anything. If you had a relationship and it went wrong and you're writing a relationship that went wrong in your book, put the feelings in it. How do you feel? How do you want to get back? If you're really crazy, you'll go like C-47, and it's a psycho thriller, and she actually kills off everyone. So do it legally. Write in their book. Every time someone makes you happy, makes you sad, piss you off, look at the paper like you're going in my book. And you start writing every name, switch their names with some other name, ghetto, whatever. Use colloquialism, bubonics, whatever you want to call it. Switch their names every time they piss you off. And you know how someone piss you off and you don't have a good comeback at the moment, and you just like, and you go home and you're like, I should have said that, or I should have did this, or I should have knocked them in their throat. There was a disconnect. You get you a paper, you open up your laptop, or you turn on your desktop computer, and you start writing everything that you could have done in your novels or in your plays or in your poetry, and to a point where you have a full-fledged novel. And then add background of, like you see in the movies, people walking around the main scene. Do that. But I promise you, everything that you felt that could have been done and write things that actually happened, that your audience will be able to connect more to that than a book like To Kill a Mockingbird. It is a timeless, priceless book, but in this time and age, our literary work has been about more emotional feelings, other people. It might not have been something you went through, but your friend or your parent or, your spouse went through it. Your kids feel like their, father's absent. Write down all of that in the book and make money off your pain. That pain can inspire other people that they're not alone in what they went through. But for the people that have teed you off, I'd make money off of that pain. You might want to inspire people from the pain of the heart or grief or whatever. Inspire. But those who have bullied you and all of that, I'd take that bullying to the bank. You going in my book. Write it in the book. Change up the names. Make sure it's legal. Make sure they can't sue you for all that. Change everything, location, name, how old they was, all of that, and make money. But write to inspire, write to release, so you aren't going to jail because you actually did something stupid. Rechannel that into your writing, your poetry. So when you get on stage and you want to do spoken word poetry, your tone of voice, your presence, your diction, people can feel it. You want your audience to cry when that scene comes, especially when you're doing a play. You want to put your emotions into the scene so that the actor or actress reading it, they feel it to the point where it's easy to open up those emotions. Same thing with a book. When I wrote Up for Air, my first book, I cried through the death scenes. I cried my heart out. Why? Because it was emotional, and I wrote through my emotions. And if you cry writing it, keep writing, and keep crying, and keep writing, and keep crying until you came up with a masterpiece that people can relate to. Make it funny. There's funny parts throughout all my novels. There are funny parts. There are sad parts. There are parts that will piss you all the way off. But that's life, and that's the essence of us as humans. But in order to write, you're going to have to tap into those emotions, rip those Band-Aids off, learn to heal the wound from the inside out. And that's by pouring blood and using that blood as an ink pen. Like you're writing your pain in blood on pieces of paper or typing it on your computer. And use that to fuel your novels or whatever you're doing in business. Your pain, and channel it, redirect it to your promise, to your paycheck. From pain to paycheck.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, funny thing what you said when you talked about those that just pissed you off, it kind of reminded me of one of my buddies back in middle school and high school. We had this pro wrestling game on the PlayStation, and what he would do is he would recreate wrestling characters based off of teachers or bullies in class, and then he would have these 60-minute wrestling matches with them on easy mode where they'll be put through tables and whatnot.
But it was a way of releasing pain without afflicting pain on the actual person that they're mad at or having a disagreement with, or they're dead that they can't say, you left me. But you can say that in the book, how you felt, even though you can't tell them because they're dead. Or you can't tell a bully to stop, but you can switch the narrative in your book. And that'll give someone who's being bullied, they read your book, that'll give them the courage to stand up, even though you didn't stand up years ago. Someone reading your book and seeing that a person being bullied actually stood up for people, that gives them that push to be like, no, I'm snitching. I don't care about the snitches get stitches. I am going for help because I value my life more than being quiet. I'm not being quiet anymore. In an abusive relationship, I'm not being quiet anymore. I value my life. I value, my feelings. I'm not going to let anything dictate how I feel about things. So I say write in your book. Like people journal, they have a journal therapy. Write in your book. People write journals all day, but you can turn that pain to a paycheck. Write out all of your pain. Make it into a fiction story. Every time someone tee you off, write it, change their names, write what happened. Write what you wish should have happened, and then edit everything until it's the perfect novel. Send it off. Before you know it, you probably have 10 novels on your bookshelf and getting paid to speak and empower men and our women and our youth and our health system and our judicial system. All because you decide to make your pain your paycheck, make your pain your purpose, make your pain the start to your healing process instead of bottling it up. Because when you bottle up all of that pain, the only thing you're going to do is make yourself have stomach ulcers, stress yourself out, and stress has caused cancer, and cancer shortens your life.
Amen, indeed. Is that the name of one of your talks when you give speeches, Pain to Paycheck?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That is amazing. That is amazing indeed. Turn your pain into a paycheck and turn that paycheck into power. That is amazing.
That is.
So in all of your writing, I'm pretty sure you've read some great books that have inspired you to continue to write. So what book, if you're probably to list the top 3, would be your favorite books that have really inspired you to write and could inspire others to keep writing?
I really don't have a top I love books. Elin Harris is my favorite author of pretty much all time. I like the way his characters play out in the story, especially difficult scenes. I wish I could have met him plenty of times, but he would definitely be number 1. I like Zane's series, especially Nervous, because it was about dissociative identity disorder out of DSM-5. Well, it's all a DSM for psychology, and since I'm a psych major and I have my BS in psychology, that really spiked me that she actually used clinical work into a character where you can understand, the different aspects. And that helped me to develop different aspects of different characters. Say someone has diabetes or bipolar, and use that in a character and flip it so the audience who don't really understand, why a person with diabetes always go to sugar or migrate to sugar or someone who has gout always migrate to salt, whatever. Not always, but most of them usually you tell them no salt, no sugar. You're going to see them 9 times out of 10 probably with that. But it's the point of showing that side that other people don't understand, and you get to show the aspect of why it's hard for someone, who might have bipolar, who may have manic depression, that you can show the audience what it's really like to live with that. That's not them, that's something that they live with. And those are my favorite too, with Zane, with Nervous, and Elin Harris, all of his books. And definitely, I would say Maya Angelou, I know how the cage bird sings. But I have so many. I have everything categorized with books that are plays, novels, by genre, by what I'm looking for in a novel, the personal connections between people. I use different novels for totally different things. So I pull apart from so many novels. It's crazy.
There you go, inspired by the greats to be even greater. I love it. So with all of your magical knowledge and experience gained thus far, if you could go back in time into the future for 5 years and you were 25 in 2018, what advice would you give to yourself?
If I was 25, I would definitely tell my 25-year-old self to start writing early. Definitely, most definitely. Start writing early. Start putting your pain into a paycheck and your paycheck to power. Most definitely, I would tell my 25-year-old self to not rush life. That life is coming whether you want it to or not. You don't have to rush it. That's what I would tell my 25-year-old self. And be prepared, because after I hit 25, it was death after death after death. And it was really ones that hit home. So I would definitely tell them stay ready, be prepared.
Amen, indeed. You got some Pain to Paycheck T-shirts out somewhere lying around?
Not yet. I'm going to have to get them. I'm literally starting out in the speaking world. So I am booking for all of my speaking engagements. I actually have a women's empowerment topic called Hidden Below Sea Level. It's SEE, which hidden below what you see in yourself and how others perceive you to be. And that's the women's empowerment, especially in business. Because if you don't know who you are, especially the skills that you have, your strengths and weaknesses in the business world, then I use Beverly Hillbillies as a perfect example with the oil. If they wouldn't have stumbled upon that oil and knew that they had oil in their backyard that was made millions, someone could have told them it was just rubbish, there was some other type of substance, moved them off of that land, made millions, and they would have never known it. But they knew what they had on their land, that no one could undercharge them or undervalue what they have. So you have to know what you have inside yourself as a business, the topics that you have, the stories that you can tell, the people that you can help, your audience. You have to know that for yourself. So no one can undercut you or say, let me pick your brain at this, or let me pick your brain, No. Charge them for it. You know how much you are worth. Don't let anyone undercut you for that. I'm open. If anyone needs a speaker for any of them, just reach out to me.
Amen, indeed. And speaking of reaching out, where can we find you online, and how can we get in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook at Crystal Santoria. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at First Poet. That's PHIRST Poet. And then you can find me at my website, Santoria.life/WP/ as in WordPress, /. And that is how you can find me. And if you want to book me for any speaking engagements, you can email me at booking@Santoria.life. That's booking@Santoria.life. Or you want more info @Santoria.life.
Amen, indeed. Book this woman to speak at your next event, especially Women's Empowerment event. Women are kicking butt these days, and speaking with this wonderful lady right here is proof of it. Heck, even most of my podcast guests are female anyway, because women are kicking butt these days. Actually, came back from a conference led by the wonderful Quinn Conyers, and it was talking about how some folks want to pick your brain, but at the end of the day, that's a consultation. You should charge for that, because that's time you're not getting back. So there you have it, folks. Going ahead and book Crystal at your next event. Be on the lookout for those I Turn My Pain into Paychecks T-shirts. I know I'm going to find myself one. But if you don't make a size for the men, I won't buy it, because I'm not going to wear Speedos on myself. But I'm still going to support you, though. I mean, I got some guns, but I'm not the type to show off. So don't forget the fellas.
Oh, Lord.
Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation. And keep a lookout for the sequel to Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself in October 2018. And if you'd like to connect with me directly, feel free to shoot me an email at dombraidman@gmail.com.